Hey buddies, welcome to AmassGames. My name is Simon. Today we're looking at Among Cultists. This is a setup, play and review video. We are set in a university and there are cultists about and we are trying to stop them from basically crucially making sure some terrible things happen tonight. Now, there are various characters you can play it with. You can choose to play with your own characters in here too. So this is called your party in the game. There is no actual listing on it for boardgamegeek. And if you find being in the universe a bit boring or whatever, you can choose to play Mountains of Chaos, whereby you're choosing to set up in an underground abandoned mine with elevators on this new map. Basically spice up the game. Also, if you don't want to play with that one, there's another expansion I do have available, and this is called Among Cultists Down to the Abyss, or Down into the Abyss, and this time you are to forget about your vacation on this map. You'll be varying obstacles, driving crazy, tentacles ahoy. So again, it's another different things. It's an expansion. You will need to play it with this base game with these various materials as well. So this is a social deduction thriller, ages 14 plus, takes about 45 to 90 minutes and is for 4 to 8 players. If you play games such as Among Us, which is a video game, this is very, very similar in premise, and other games such as One Night Ultimate Werewolf, check out my videos for those too. Also check out various other videos in my escape room playlist and stuff like that, as well as my family weight and party game playlist. I think you'll find this very interesting. There's also various playlists such as the expansion stuff that I mentioned, but let's crack on with how to set up, play and review, and you can also find that in the various playlists for it too, including board game reviews. So in this game you're going to be playing, this is set up initially as a 6-player game. It's how I most recently played it at. And you are going to have 5 basically adventurers and also 1 character playing as a cultist. I'm going to briefly read out the bad omens, which is the beginning of the story, and then crack on to the setup and how to play the game. By all means, you can skip through it, you can times up the speed, you can check out the various other stuff on the podcast, as well as images over on Instagram and the discussion on Facebook via the description on YouTube. So, good grief, finally you're here. The echo of his voice resounded through the hallway like a greeting from another world. The skinny director looked at his golden pocket watch with a slightly shaking hand while he wiped away his sweaty forehead with a handkerchief. "How bad is it?" the man in the brown trench coat with a pitch black eye patch asked in the doorway of the foyer as he surveyed the room, which was messed up with mysterious runes, only to answer the question for himself afterwards. "I see, significantly worse than expected. Does it look like that everywhere around here?" "Yes, every one of them. What is the meaning of all this, Gomery? What do those cultists want? They're insane." The man with the eye patch went over to a dresser behind the director and poured himself a whiskey in a lead crystal glass. "It's about the arcane ritual. We must stop it tonight, or they'll awaken something unimaginable from its eternal sleep. Gather everyone in the central corridor immediately, before it's too late." "Sure, I'll do whatever you want, Gomery, but please, save the university. I'll inform all members of the secret society." Gomery emptied the glass in a single gulp without turning a hair, then put it back upside on the dresser, along with pentagrams in blood-red coloured watches ominously. "After that, leave the university. Who knows what else will happen tonight? We cannot guarantee your safety." So what we're going to talk about here, as I'm going to read the sentence again, blood-red colour, watch ominously. So, what we're talking about in this particular game is we're going to have various characters, and if you are a cultist, again, we don't know who the cultist is, they are trying to kill off the other characters. If they do so, and a certain amount of being killed off, they will win. What the good character needs to do is win a certain number of victory points. That is going to depend on the number of players that we're playing with, and what they're trying to do is get victory points equal to here, and we have a little counter going out in a second, basically showing you how many you're able to try and win at. So, in this particular game, there's a number of different rounds. You're trying to win by that certain amount of rounds as well. And whoever's last at a nightmare is going to go first. They're going to take this knife, which, just to show you, it is cardboard. So do not worry about any kind of danger from that perspective. But yeah, there are various other things just to show you and set up. As you can see, we've got little book tokens here. You're trying to complete book tokens. You'll also be placing out various cards. You're trying to get successes at these various locations. As you might notice, this is a modular board. You can flip it over for various player counts. So for example, 7-player game, I believe you play on the other side of that one. By all means, do let me know in the comments section on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. So let's say we're playing to get 12 or 10 points or something like that. How do you get points? We're going to be moving around to various locations. We are limited in where we can move to based on certain footstep cards, such as these. In certain rounds, these allow you to go to certain locations. If you're the cultist though, you can go anywhere you want. So of course you want to bluff and sometimes go where you think you can go, but if you suddenly think you're going to all 3 rooms, people might find that suspicious, they might think you're the cultist, and at the end of the game, if the cultist has happened to kill off the amount of people to win the game, then all the other people can suddenly vote 1, 2, 3 and point to who they think happens to be the cultist, and then they can win. Now, in a 5, 6, and 8 player game, and the first game, you're playing with a seer who does know who the cultist is. However, of course, it might be the case that the cultist can choose to try and kill off that seer and therefore make a mistake. So they're going to go to various locations. When you go to locations, you're going to be doing skill checks. You're basically revealing one of these cards, and they're going to have various things on them, such as a plus sign saying it's a success, sometimes a negative card, which basically means nothing's going to happen, or it's going to be a sabotage card. So they're going to various different things are going to go out to these locations. There's 9 locations on the board. And if you get a success, what you're doing is taking those book tokens and they're going to be placing it over here. Once you've got enough, so there's 3 green things over here, then you're going to get yourself 3 victory points and you're that much closer to winning. However, if you happen to do orange, you can see there are various locations for orange. Then you need to do all of those locations. You're going to need to do 4 things to get yourself 4 points. Generally speaking though, as you can see, it's quite straightforward, at least for 4 ones. 4 things get you 4 points, 2 gets you 2, 3 gets you 3, but some things do take a bit different as well. So that is the premise on what you're trying to do. Now, in terms of the cultists, what they're doing is, when they're moving to different locations, they can kill people off if there's exactly 2 people in the same room at the same time. However, if there's more than 2, then of course there's a witness. So what might happen is you might want there to be the lights out scenario, whereby no one can see if you kill somebody else. If you kill somebody else, they become a ghost, they can no longer do any interactions. However, of course, they are still in the game. In terms of player boards, so you'll know who is who, everyone's going to take one of these player boards as well. So if I see someone sat over there, I know that that person happens to be that respective character, etc. So there's 10 different ones you can play as. For the first game, you're not going to be playing with any extra kind of abilities, but you can play with extra abilities as well, and I do recommend it. So for your first game, it's going to be a bit of a long learning curve. There's a lot of setup to do as well, and you do need to be aware of exact player counts as well when you're setting up the game. So for example, in a 6-player game, you are going to have certain starting cards as well. It's always going to be exactly 16 cards, and you are going to have various cards. So everyone's going to take one of these. They're going to be face down, how you set up the deck. So you're going to lay out a few of these each. You're then going to lay out a certain number of cards, which are either going to be, depending on the number of player counts, for example, 5 alive and 2 dead. And you're going to shuffle them all up. And you're also going to have various other stuff too. Now, in terms of alive or dead cards, they look slightly different, because those are success and failures, apologies. So if you're playing, you're going to be having either success cards, pulse cards, alive cards, or dead cards, as opposed to success and failures, which look a bit different. So as you can see, they are different backs. So everyone's going to start off alive, but some might start off dead. And when you move to a different location, I will come up with this again, this is just a quick overview, is you are going to be passing a card to somebody else. The other person will not see what you draw, but the crucial part about it is you might be a cultist and you might be passing the card, or you might think you're alive and you're passing a card, and in fact you are dead and you've passed the card over to maybe one of your opponents, and of course you think they're in your team, but of course you might have killed them off by accident, or now they're now dead. And again, they might not know so. So they think they're all fine, and actually a lot of people have been killed. Again, the cultists will win if enough people have been killed, so they're going to announce it. So let's continue on with what we're doing in terms of setup. So, like I said, in the 6-player game, we're trying to get 12 victory points. If we're playing as a 4, as an example, or a 5, you're playing to 10 victory points. In a 4 to 5 player game, you're playing with 1 cultist. It's the same with a 6. With more than 7 players, or 7 or more, it's 2 cultists. So what you're doing initially is you are going to place out one of these cards face down. You're placing a number of those success cards, a number of those alive or dead cards out as well. And you're also going to be placing out various tokens. So this one shows it's a cultist with a tentacle. However, most people are going to be shown with an M, showing that they actually are like the good guys. You're going to put one of these and one of these face down with the respective decks. But for the cultist deck, it is going to look slightly different. And then what you're doing, because they're going to have 4 alive, 3 dead, 2 success, 4 failure, 2 sabotage, and 1 root. And then placing them, those various things, again, 16 cards, and one of those tokens into one of these envelopes each. Very fancy envelopes. You're going to shuffle them up and hand them out. And then secretly look at your thing, making sure no one else can see it. Again, if you're the cultist, you are looking at a different set of cards. Everyone else's K is going to be doing this. Again, in terms of what you're doing to movement, you're limited in where you can move. You can move up to 3 spaces, and these are places that you can move in those certain rounds. So let's just talk briefly about what you're then going to be doing on your turn. So we're also going to have various things to talk about, in such as the night phase. Everyone's going to close their eyes, and basically it allows the seer to then actually see who else is there. So in the high player count, of course, you're going to open your eyes and see who else is on your team. But of course, if it's in an 8-player game, you're going to see it, otherwise you're not. But if you're playing without the seer, everyone's going to close your eyes, reveal your fate. Many a life might fade to grey. Everyone close your eyes and turn your deck so that the bottom card is visible. Sisters and brothers, take a look at the prey the old one took. Cultists, open your eyes, get to know your teammates and see who is dead from the beginning, if any. And then you're going to cover the fate. Now this is playing with the seer. Cover your fate and close your eyes. Fist extended, no disguise. Everyone close your eyes and cover your decks. All stretch their fists. Cultists now show thumbs up. Now if you're the cultist, don't do it like this. Make sure your thumb is on the outside. And of course the seer can now see it. So alien eyes seek to distort, but you know their time is short. Seer, open your eyes. See the cultists. Everyone close their eyes. All thumbs down, open your eyes. Let's go. So how are you going to play the game? You can talk about anything except you can't talk about your true affiliation, your team affiliation, and you cannot show how many investigators you have murdered if you're the cultists, regardless if you're still alive or not. You may not show anything regarding your roots, your card in hand or anything like that, and a movement must never end where it started. And when you're playing cards, you must always look at the cards beforehand. It is not allowed to just play the cards blindly because of the back of the card. Basically make it too hard for the cultists. So it's a maximum 10-round game consisting of 4 phases, starting with the movement phase where you're moving. I'll talk to you about that in a second. If I'm speaking too fast, just slow this video down. Of course, speed it up if you wish to as well. You're going to have the event phase. Basically, we're going to reveal a token from a bag and it's going to tell us something. So that's going to come out from here and it's going to be filling up this clock. Okay, so that's basically up to 10 rounds. So as you can see, it goes up to 10. We're moving it across and something is going to be triggering. So it might be something like you can move an extra space, maybe you can move one fewer spaces. I'll talk to you about that in a second. Then you have the action phase. Each player may perform one character or one room action, something they can do, or obviously something at one of these room locations. Again, this corresponds to this location. Lastly, the cleanup phase. So the vote token is flipped to its active side. If this is round 10, the game ends and you check the victory conditions. Otherwise, pass the fast player marker clockwise, move the hand to the next hour and prepare for the next round. And you keep playing until, again, one of those victory conditions is met. So speaking about those phases in detail, we have the movement phase, starting with the first player and continuing clockwise. You're all going to perform one movement stage. So let's say I'm going first, then I can choose to move up to 3 spaces. So I can move, again, okay, 1, 2, or something like this. Again, you can move between room and hallways. Each room has at least one door. So you can see there's a door here. And obviously it's connecting to another hallway. So there we go. Oops, move it into there. So each movement across one door costs one's movement. So in this case, it cost me 1, 2, so I've moved into here now. And yes, but movement may not end at any start locations I mentioned, meaning characters again must move on their turn. And the number of characters allowed to share the same hallway is unlimited. So, and many people who want to could stay here. Now, just to let you know, in terms of a tip, don't necessarily move as much as you can because there's going to cause more interaction, which means the cultist is more likely to be involved as well, and therefore killing people. I'll come back to triggering an encounter in a second. But as a route, again, you can only move where you're allowed to move to. So imagine that first character happened to have this one. Then in this case, they can only move into these specific rooms. So they might want to move over to here. So starting here, again, they could move into it and just stop. So that might be what they want to do. Or maybe they try and reach pink. So they could go, in this case, they're a bit more limited because they might not be able to reach to blue. So maybe they go here because, of course, they can start triggering some of the book tokens which would be out. Again, I've chosen to put everything else back in the bag for the time being just to show you as an example. But we'll maybe trigger a room event in a second, which I'll show you. So once they've moved, again, you as an investigator, your personal route, which means you receive at the beginning of the game, basically tells you which round, again, you can move into and which places you can choose to move to. As an example, in this particular round, again, you can move freely in general, but you can only use the room actions of these specific ones. So you can move any way you like, but those are the specific actions in those locations. There's various things that these various rooms have on them. So as a cultist mentioned, you can move any way you like, but remember, if someone notices that you've been using a lot of room actions on the same turns consecutively, again, people might start asking some questions. And as a ghost, as I mentioned, you don't use movement points, but instead you teleport to a location of your choice each round, but you never participate in an encounter. But once you have completed your movement and resolved all encounters, you pass that phase marker clockwise to the next player. So trigger an encounter during both during and at the end of your movements, of course not at the beginning, but if this turn this person goes and they go, I don't know, here, and I don't know, or maybe this person went here and this person went through here, then we've triggered an encounter. Let's talk about that then. So what this means is if you're in a room or a hallway with at least one other character, check the table to see if an event is triggered. So if the light is on, which it is, and there's exactly 2, an encounter happens, If it's 3 or more, then there's no encounter. But again, if there's 2 or more, then there's still an encounter. Again, that is still counting as an encounter. Then this is how it's going to work. You're going to take exactly 1 alive card and 1 dead card from basically from your card deck, okay, face down on the pulse deck. So you can draw exactly 2, so you can look through them, and then you're going to pass a card face down to your opponent, and they're going to do the same to you, okay. And then what you're going to be doing is, again, you're not going to look at the card that you received, but what you're going to be doing is you're going to be aware of that, and just let you know that cultists can therefore only murder without a witness. That's basically the premise I was going about earlier. So if no more than 2 characters involved in the encounter, if the power is off. After all characters have performed their movement though, pass that phase marker to the first player and proceed to the event phase. So again, everyone is going to move around. That's what you're doing initially, is you're just moving around. And then we'll talk about, obviously, the character actions and the room actions in a second. So again, you're placing one of those cards face down on the pulse deck. So you'll be drawing these cards and you're going to be placing them again on your pulse deck. So face down on your pulse deck. So again, people will know exactly what you are the next time you move there. Okay, so let's talk about the next thing. We're moving the event phase. So this is when we're going to draw a character thing out here. And this is basically say for the current round, you're going to draw 1 event token. So now we've moved, we've now got an event. So this is going to go out. So let's say it goes out here, and let's tell you what that means. So as you can see, it's quite bright, but that is what that does. And if we skip to the back of the rulebook, you can see the examples of what they do. Various events. So we've got various things such as lightning strike. We happen to have the mirror, which basically repeats the previous event. Again, in round 1, nothing happens. But other things, as I said, you can have boosted morale, which lets you move an extra space. Lost morale, which makes you lose a space. You have a portal opening and stuff like that. There's also a fishman over here. So it's not fisherman, it's a fishman. And they can block stuff. So basically, the active player needs to be doing stuff. So that's what you can do about scaring away the fishman. That's something else you can do. You can also assassinate a character. That's something else that can happen too. And there's other various actions to tell you about. So, in terms of the action phase, so we've now obviously moved. We have now triggered the event, which might mean that we can do various extra stuff. So basically we can do, in this case, obviously nothing happened, but if it was that morale, boosted morale, this means the beginning of the next round, you can of course move further until the next event kicks in. So it's a bit strange that you do it before. It's not obviously at the beginning of that phase or round, but it allows you now initially what is going on, but you need to check what happened the prior round in terms of if it's movement or something that's been modified. So you're going to flip that phase marker gear phase up to show that you're in the action phase. So we can talk about that in a second. Let me just move some things out of the way. But then what you're going to be doing is you can do character actions. You can check a state, you can secure a hallway, you can fight a cultist, scare away that fishman that I mentioned, which you won't play with in your first game. You can assassinate a character. Those are all the character actions you can do. But there are other things you can do, such as you can fill the room deck. You can also do other things, such as check a room. By the way, this is what we're talking about, the movement phase, and now we're in the action phase. So you can initiate a vote, you can use the camera, you can restart the power supply, and you can close the portal. So restarting the power supply might be important to make sure that basically we have enough people, so trying to get 3 people in a room. So again, that of course would not trigger an encounter. So maybe moving in groups of 3 could be good, but again, this person might move first, and then that person might be following them, and of course they say, well, I need to get to blue, but suddenly someone might be dead, but of course it could have been that person. So, as an investigator, just to remind you, you can only use the room actions listed on your route card, but again, remember, we might be in round 2 now, so things might be different. And then we do that cleanup phase, whereby in a game of 4 to 6 players, the sole cultists may now actively initiate the end of the game by revealing themselves and claiming to have reached their victory condition, which again, is enough investigators are dead. And all characters then are going to check the cards in their pulse deck. If the cultist was right, the investigators will lose the game instantly. If, again, they have all got, obviously, a dead card, a dead pulse card in their hand. And again, they'll lose. But if it's round 10, the game ends now as well. And you're going to check the victory conditions and see who has won. But again, if there was a vote and you're going to flip that token in the cafeteria, active side up, pass the first player marker and the phase marker clockwise to the next player, flip the phase marker, the foot side up, advance, so this is basically that foot side and the clock side, that's what they call it. So actions, let's talk about those actions. So you can check a state. You can shuffle the character's discard pile, so you need a minimum of 1 living character target in the same location. So maybe over here, what I'm going to be doing is checking somebody. And as an investigator, you must tell the truth and report the state. So you're going to look in someone's deck and say, yes, you are alive, or yes, you're dead. But, or basically if you're dead, you're now going to be a ghost. However, as a cultist, you can tell the truth or lie. So maybe by lying is important because you're covering your tracks. But maybe you want to tell them that they're dead for some reason, just to, I don't know, scare people off or whatever it might be. That's something you can do. You can also secure a hallway. So what you're going to be doing is shuffling one success and one failure or a sabotage card face down into the unsafe passage deck. But don't worry about that. You will not be playing that in your first game. But just to show you, this is the unsafe passage. So there's another way you can go through and be aware of stuff. Again, cards are never placed in hallways. However, hallways are the only option to get cards into the unsafe passage deck. So you could fight a cultist, however you do need a cultist token in your room, and you're made to remove this token from the game to put back in the box. Okay, now there are other things we talked about, such as scaring the fishman. You can also assassinate a character, and maybe just get some zoomage going on over here. And again, to assassinate a character, you're going to reveal your role, so flip your role marker and assassinate the target character, but it doesn't trigger a vote. I'll come back to votes in a second. And also have room actions, so you can fill the room deck. So what you're doing is you're going to be placing a success, failure or sabotage card face down on top of the deck. So the reason for doing so is you might have drawn a sabotage card, which of course is bad, we'll talk about in a second. You might draw a success or you might draw a failure. So let's talk to you about why you do that. Of course, as a cultist, you're chucking in some of those negative cards, but as the good guys, you want to put in some success cards. So you're going to place one of those cards face down to the top of these decks. And if it's the first time that there are 3 cards in that room, you want to flip that token to show that it's explored. So the reason for doing so is just to say that, hey guys, it's now kind of been active, it's been looked at, we've now got enough stuff going on here. So that's all that's representing. So once you've done that, again, if the room you've just flipped shows that it's an unsafe passage icon, don't worry about that, of course that's not happening in your first game. So if you reveal a card and it's a success, then nothing happens, but if it's a failure, you're going to flip one face down cultist token and place it into the room shown specifically. But if it's a sabotage token, again it might involve that fishman being involved, but don't worry about it in your first game. So when you do check a room, you do require you're standing in an explored room. So an explored room again will have that tick token on it, and the whole point of that is just to show you that of course you have been actively investigating that location. By the way, these tick tokens I talked to you about, these are here. So this is to show you that their room has actually been investigated, and you do need to do that to then check a room. So again, you need to have 3 cards, otherwise it's too obvious what it might be. So as soon as there are 3 cards there, again on your turn, you're normally going to be chucking out cards, making sure you get 3. Then you're going to shuffle the draw deck and draw one and resolve it. So you might then draw a sabotage card, in which case you take 1 book token in that room colour from the bookshelf and return it to the room. So in this case it's coming back, which is bad. However, if it's a failure, then nothing happens. But if it's a success, you're placing 1 book token from the room onto the bookshelf, and you're going to place that book token onto an empty space in the matching colour of the bookshelf in the bottom right corner of the map. After that, remove that card from the game. And once you're finishing a room, once you've placed all the books from a room onto the bookshelf, the room is considered finished. And once the room is finished, you can neither fill its room deck nor check it anymore. But again, you've now scored yourself some victory points, which of course is very helpful for you trying to win the game. Lastly, let's talk about initiating a vote. So requirement, you can only be used once per round by a living character, standing in the light blue room, cafeteria, which is basically up here. And what it's going to do is the first player having a knife is a special ability during votes. In a 5 to 6 player game, you may change your vote after opening your eyes and after valuation, and in a 7 to 8 player game, your vote counts double. You start an open discussion, and again, don't forget those kind of golden rules, again, what you can talk about. But certain circumstances might allow you to run a countdown, but feel free to choose what you think is best. And the crucial part of the game is, I'm just checking page 13 or page 11 again, is yes, what you can talk about. And that's pretty much how the game's going to go. Again, you are trying to keep an eye out on who's going on there. You're trying to make sure you can stop the power supply. And again, you could do other things such as using that camera, security camera over here. And again, you can do various other stuff too. So what do I think of the game? So my rating for this is a 7.5. There's other stuff you can do, more complicated stuff. You can do AI characters. You can actually play various experimented roles such as Radiant Beauty, Infected, Super Ghost, Firestarter, Crybaby, Greenhorn, Butterfingers, Assassin, Mechanic, loads of other things too. Again, we spoke about those events. In terms of the gameplay itself, it does, like I said, take a while to get used to the premise of it, but game turns do go quickly. A round can be about 5 minutes. You're basically chucking down a card, you're then trying to get those cards to make books, but you're trying to do it subtly, and you want to pace yourself, because again, the more you're moving, the more you're interacting with potential cultists. It's a fun game, a lot of setup, like I said, lots to recall, but again, it has taken 25 minutes compared to other games which are a lot more cleaner and simpler. However, a lot of care has gone into this and been very clever, and a new expansion is coming out As always, let me know in the comments the best on YouTube, like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Looking forward to speaking again very soon, and for now, back to the table.